You're listening to the Reds Podcast.
This is episode number 73. Today it's just me, and I'm talking about how to be more innovative in business because the world is changing, business is changing, and I want to make sure you don't get left behind. That's coming up on this episode of the Red Podcast.
This is the Red Podcast. Real entrepreneur development. Make more money, work less, and live a life of freedom. No BS advice that really works. Here's your hosts, David Hooper and Laurel Staples.
Today I am doing something that I have never attempted before. I've been in radio for a while, since 2005. In fact, I've had a syndicated show called Music Business Radio, done probably 200 podcast episodes on top of that. I have never, ever done a solo show. Even in my days of college radio, I've always had music to play. I've always had a guest to interview. I've always had a co-host, which is what Laurel does here on Red Podcast, but she's off this episode because she's busy with Project X. I still can't give you details on it, but I'm going to be able to in the next couple of episodes because she's launching in the next couple of weeks. We want to share the journey with you. We've been shooting video for it all week. You're going to love not only the product, but the marketing behind it. We'll be sharing the strategies of launching a business, launching a new product, and you're going to be able to walk with us through the highs and the lows. This is what really works, and this is what separates Real Entrepreneur Development Red Podcast from all the other podcasts. We're not just theory. This is really what works, because when we're not doing this, we are in the trenches with real businesses, and we're going to help you to do your own real business. What is RED? It stands for Real Entrepreneur Development. We help you build an audience, sell more products, make more money. And how do we do that? It's something I call personality marketing. We're bringing your personality to the forefront, the personality of your product to the forefront. We're going to make you become famous within your industry and beyond. I've done it for over 2 decades in the music industry. If you're wondering how people become famous, this is how. Thank you for joining me today. Mentioned being in the industry for 20 years. How do you do that? People are coming and going. The industry, especially the music industry, has changed a lot. If you're doing something online, that's changed a lot as well. So this episode, I'm going to talk to you about how to have staying power. You know, it's really easy to get lucky, and everybody does that from time to time, but it's hard to stay on top consistently. Let's talk about luck for a second. If you were to go out and buy a lottery ticket and you were to play that same number, eventually it's going to win. Now, granted, you might be dead before you won. The chances are very, very slim, but eventually those numbers would come up. And business is very much the same way. Sometimes you see some guys that just are pounding the pavement, and every day they get up and they do the same thing and they don't give up. Eventually they have a breakthrough. Well, that happens. Here's the problem. When people have success, they think, oh, it was just me. It's never going to end. And that definitely does not happen. So I want to talk to you about comfort and conformity, because that's the real problem with staying on top. The music industry is a great example of this. Why has the music industry changed so much? It was because of comfort. If you think about it, let's talk about popular music for a minute. For the last 75 years, the music industry has been in existence. The music industry as we know it. Now, for 60 of those years, maybe 65, maybe even 70, the music business was more or less the very same business. You would record something, you would put it on a piece of plastic, you would ship that piece of plastic out to stores, and people would purchase it. They would go to the store, hand over their money, and they would walk out with a physical product that they could play on a stereo, whatever they used to play music on. Now, what happened over the last few years? Well, the internet changed a lot. People were able to copy things digitally. They were able to distribute them digitally. They were able to buy them when the music industry finally said, yeah, people might pay to actually download stuff. But before that, what the music industry didn't do was acknowledge that that was an option. So they stuck their head in the sand. And the reason the industry is the way that it is now, the reason it has been so devastated, because the business in general thought that it was too big to fail. They said, hey, no, this is the industry, man. This is the music business. This is how things work here. We're the industry. They're the little guys. We tell them what to do. And this is how we want it. We want to put stuff on plastic, send it to stores. They're going to go to the stores, buy a piece of plastic, play it on their stereo. People didn't want it that way. And that's the issue that you're facing now, regardless of what industry that you're in. If you stay too comfortable and if you think things aren't going to change, you're wrong. We've talked about this here on the podcast before. If you have one income stream, that income stream can come and go. Again, look at music business. No more stores. Everything's going to iTunes. But what happens if you have a problem with iTunes? Well, then there's a problem. So don't rely on any one industry. I would tell you, too, not to rely on any one product. That's a different episode, though. Let's get back to how things are moving faster and faster, because this is actually a very good thing if you can keep on top of it. That disruption, because things were changing, is actually what really kicked off my career. I started my career in 1995. I was still in college, and what I was doing was very much the same as somebody who had started 20, 30 years before me. I was doing radio promotion. I was doing what we call street promotion, going out in the street, getting people to shows, and what we call hype, getting people excited about acts that way. That had not changed for 20, 30 years or more until the internet came along. But when I started, the internet wasn't much of a player. Here's what happened, though. I started fooling around on the internet. I was one of the first guys to actually start marketing music on the internet. I understood the internet. I was looking forward to see where things are going, and I started to learn this new technology. Well, it was too late for the music industry. People wouldn't listen to me. Sure, I did have clients, mostly indie guys that had no other choice, but my major label clients, the guys that I was working with, they were still playing the old game. Here's where things really took off, though. Because I had been in the music industry and been successful, music was the first industry to really go through this internet change. Well, it started happening for books. And after books, the next transition was to film and television. And why was that? Because technology got so that we could transfer these big files. We could actually download entire movies, and it was quick, and it was high quality, and people wanted to watch things that they could get digitally through the internet rather than going to something like Blockbuster. So because I was already established at promoting one thing online, I was poised to start doing books. I was poised to start working with film and television studios and start promoting things that way. If you're constantly looking forward, even if your entire industry crashes around you, there will still be a place for you. The last thing you want to do, though, is put your head in the sand. Now, here's another thing that's happening right now that you've got to watch out for if you want longevity in your industry, and that's that the life of products, the life of promotion, it's getting shorter and shorter and shorter. Quick example of this, if you go on Facebook now or Twitter now or whatever your social media is, that stuff is gone just like that. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just the general lifetime of a product. And here's an example that you might have heard of. A few months ago, there was an app in the Apple App Store. It was an iPhone game, and it was called Flappy Bird. Flappy Bird took off. All of a sudden, it's number one. People start paying attention. This guy's making a good 5 figures a day. I can't remember the exact stats, but I think it was $40,000 to $60,000 a day through all the people downloading his app and viewing the ads that were part of the game Flappy Bird. So just a couple weeks after that, once people found out about this, developers started coming out with Flappy Fish, Flappy Copter, Flappy Dolphin, all sorts of different variations of this same game. They took his idea, they took his game, and they changed it up just enough so they could get around any kind of intellectual property or copyright or trademark laws. And they started ripping him off. So this guy went from maybe, let's say it was $50,000 a day to maybe $40,000 a day. And then the stuff started getting segmented, and all of a sudden he's dropped to $10,000 a day, $5,000 a day. I don't know the numbers. I'm just making this up. But the point is the same. People will start to copy you, and then what happens? You've got to move on to something else. Never think that what you've got is going to last. That is the worst thing that you can do, and I've seen it happen to so many people. Today you have to be moving forward just to stand still. Let me give you a story about a guru I know. This guy is very, very well known. you would know who he is. He flies on a private plane, and when he has to go somewhere, he flies directly to usually a smaller airport within the same kind of city. I don't know if you realize this, but sometimes the smaller planes, there'll be maybe a secondary airport that handles them so the commercial flights can go to the main airports. So he'll go to a smaller airport. The plane is greeted by a limousine right on the tarmac, right on the runway. He gets in the limousine, goes straight to the hotel. On the way, he's got people that are on the payroll at the hotel. He's got people that are on the payroll. He's got the people that have hired him. They're all yes men. They're all being paid by him. He gets good feedback from them. He gets good feedback from the people that are there to see him. He starts to believe his own press. And here's the thing. This guy's business is slowly dying. It's no different than the music industry. He thinks he's too big to fail, yet here he is. It's happening so slowly, he doesn't even see it. It's one of those things, it's almost like a silicone breast implant. It looks great on the outside. If you looked at just the facade, it looks fantastic, but it's slowly killing you. It's leaking on the inside and slowly killing you. Most people approach their businesses just like this, just like the guru, just like the music business. You may have something that's going on for you right now, and you think, man, this is really great. I finally made it. This is my first successful project. I've got it, and it's never, ever going to end. That is absolutely not true. So let's talk about how you can keep moving forward, because again, you have to keep moving forward just to stand still. One of the things that I notice with people that are doing really well is they start to hang out with yes men, or at the very least, they start to hang out with people that are just like them. The qualities that got them to being successful in the first place are no longer there, and they start to hang out with all the other guys that are being successful. And I think that can be okay, but the problem is, for the most of them, there's no diversity. They're not hanging out with anybody else. It's just the yes men, just the people that are just like them. And we all do that. We have done that in the United States, probably around the world, with our churches, with our schools. If you think about the high school that you went to, well, it was pretty homogenous. If it was geographic or if it was a private school, homogenous based on money. Even if it had some diversity, you got black folks over here, white folks over here, cool kids, jocks, nerds, band guys. We're not having much diversity, and we're only hearing from the people that are just like us. Think about how our churches are. Well, obviously, you've got a same religion that's bringing you in there, right? But the churches are the same color. The churches have the same demographics. A lot of these churches are maybe a neighborhood church, so you don't have anybody coming from outside your neighborhood. And we all know that neighborhoods are not very diverse. We listen to news outlets that agree with our opinions, so we're not getting any kind of news that differs from what we already think. If you're very conservative, perhaps you listen to InfoWars, or maybe a little less conservative, Fox. If you're more liberal, MSNBC, or maybe NPR. And I think that kind of thing, when it's done in business, is killing you as far as innovation. It's killing you as far as moving forward. We copy from the same gurus. This is when things get really, really bad. And this is very, very scary. I'm going to talk about podcasting for a sec, because this is a podcast. Right now, there's a guy named John Lee Dumas, and I think John Lee Dumas is fantastic. So this is nothing personal against him. But the problem is, this guy has had so much success, everybody's flocking to him, and everybody is doing the exact same thing he is. Look, what he does is great, but you're not going to out John Lee Dumas, John Lee Dumas. So don't call yourself blank on fire or blank nation like he does. Don't use the same questions that he's doing. Don't use the same intro music or the same guy who's doing the intro voiceover. That's what I'm talking about when I talk about no diversity in business. And that's the kind of thing that's going to kill you. This guy is so far ahead of you, the only way you can really compete is by doing something original. Sure, take his system, learn from him, but make it your own. Don't just copy him. When you copy people and when everybody's copying the same people, that's a sure way to just dig yourself into the ground. We've already got one John Lee Dumas. We don't need another one. Everybody can click over to him as easily as they can click over to you. That's how business has changed. It would have been one thing if John Lee Dumas was in San Diego and you couldn't get him outside of San Diego, so you copied a great format and did it in New York, you did it where I am in Nashville, that would be one thing. But regardless of where you are in the world today, you can go to click on EO Fire just as easily as you can click on me at redpodcast.com. That's why we don't play that game, and that's why you shouldn't play that game either. Don't copy us. Make your own style. We look to the same companies, the same industries for answers. Car companies look to other car companies for answers. That's one of the reasons that we had this whole American auto company problem. And you know how they fixed it? Here's how Ford turned themselves around. They brought in a guy from the aerospace industry, from Boeing. It was sort of related. You could see some of the parallels, and he had just enough parallels, but just enough difference to where he could do some things that the auto industry didn't see were possible. So if you really want to get innovative, you can't approach your business by looking to the same guys that are already there. You've got to go to other people. For example, if you want a lesson of good customer service, let's say you've got an online business, you don't have to find somebody that's also online. Maybe it's the carpenter down the street, the guy who works in your house. Maybe it's the baker that's baking cakes for you. I don't know what it is, but you don't have to necessarily get the lessons in your business from somebody who's in the same business that you are. You know what I think is really, really scary? I've seen a lot of these things popping up. Mastermind groups. Now, I'm a big believer in mastermind groups. I actually wrote a book on masterminds. It's called The Rich Switch. It's available on Amazon.com. We've done an entire podcast on masterminds, and that's red.com/38 if you want to know how to set up a mastermind group. Here's where things get dangerous with masterminds. When you have people that are just like you, we've said it here on the podcast before, and this is true in any group. If everybody in the group agrees, you've got too many people in the group. I want some people that are going to push back at me. I want some people from different industries. Here's what happens when you get people that are just like you. You start getting what I call support. I think support is great. For example, if you're a female and you want to work out with other females who know what it's like to be a female and work out, Curves Gym, great for that. If you're an alcoholic and you're trying to get over your drinking issues, Alcoholics Anonymous, it's great for that. Very specifically, if you're a Christian alcoholic, go to a chapter of Alcoholics Anonymous that meets in a church that is a Christian-based group and everything is about Jesus. If you're an atheist alcoholic and you don't want to buy into the 12-step program and the higher power, there are other options for you. I think support is great, and sometimes you want people that are in your same position, that have the same beliefs that you do. But this is awful for business, and here's why. The bad habits that you don't know are bad, everybody's got them. Holes are exaggerated. For example, if you went to a tennis camp and everybody's working on their forehand, but nobody's working on their backhand, they're all great forehand players, how's your backhand going to get better? And maybe you don't know that you even need one because everybody's got a forehand. It's hard to see that there are other options in these type of groups because they say, oh, that's the way that it's done around here. So if you're getting in a mastermind group, you need diversity. The last thing you want is people that are all married. The last thing that you want is people that are all in the same type of business. The last thing that you want is people that are all the same age. The last thing that you want are people that have been in the business for 20 years, not 30, not 15, not 5. Get as much diversity as you can. The things that matter in a mastermind group: is everybody committed to moving forward? Is everybody willing to do the work? Does everybody have the same view of honesty and ethics? Those are the things that are very important in a mastermind group. Don't get with people that are just like you, because that sets you up to be knocked off by other people, to be knocked off by technology. Why did the music industry fail? Let's take it back to that. It was because they were hanging out with a bunch of music industry people. Why have the film and the book industries done so well? They learned from the music industry, and in a lot of cases, as I mentioned, I was brought on by the film, TV, book industries. They started bringing in people from the music industry, and they said, hey, what did you learn? We don't want to have to reinvent the wheel and surround ourselves with people that think that we're too big to fail or that want to stay like we were, because we've seen what that's done for you. Here's your solution on how to move forward in business. If you want to be more innovative, you've got to get to know different people and their ideas. You've got to look at industries other than your own. That's what expanded my business. I'm going to say it again, because I had done well in music. I was able to get into the book industry. I was able to get into the film and TV industry. Now, you could do that. That's kind of the hard way, though. It's hard when your entire industry is shattering all around you. Fortunately, there were places for me to jump. You should be able to go outside of your industry before it gets destroyed. If we had done that in the music industry, it would be a very, very different world right now. I'm going to tell you this too. I think it's very important as well that you listen to news outlets and hang out with people that don't share your beliefs. You don't have to agree with people, but if you're a Michael Moore fan, listen to Rush Limbaugh. If you're into Limbaugh, listen to Michael Moore. Go to different places and you can say, hey, that's all BS. I don't believe a word of it. But start thinking bigger than just your little world. This is business we're talking about. I'm not telling you how to live your life, and I'm not telling you what's right or what's wrong in your personal life. But if you want to be innovative in business, do not do what happened in my industry, which is just listen to yes men and people just like you and say, hey, we're too big to fail, because you're not too big to fail, and you will fail. But there's a great opportunity for innovation. Let me tell you how I would have fixed the music industry. At the time, this was about 15 years ago, the average person was spending about $2 a month on recorded music. Now, that was about one CD a year. That's $2 a month. Well, here's how we would have fixed it. We could have packaged something like Spotify, where people could get all they want, all they could eat, stream it, charge $10 a month. Think about that. 10 divided by 2. That would have been 5 times the money. We would have had 500% growth in the industry. Everybody would have had all they wanted. That would have fueled more live shows, more touring, more merch. But they refused to do that. They tried to play the old game. Spotify, yeah, we got it here now, but it's too little too late. And those opportunities are everywhere, but you've got to get the ideas from elsewhere. The idea for a subscription service, that didn't come from the music industry. That came from phones, that came from cable, that came from other industries. So I'm telling you right now, hang out with people that are different than you. Listen to news outlets that report news and a belief system that you don't completely agree with. You can disagree with it, but just listen to it. Just be open to it, because you're going to find the little things that you can bring back to your industry. You're not going to have to be like Flappy Copter, Flappy Fish, Flappy Airplane. You're going to be the guy who's innovating, and you're going to get these ideas from elsewhere, so nobody's going to know that it's not your own. That's it for me. David Hooper here. Laurel will be back on the next episode of Red Podcast. We can't wait to talk to you about Project X. We've been shooting a lot of videos for it, so if you're interested in video marketing and how to really connect with an audience, we're going to show you how to do that. But I think it's going to be really fun for you to watch how a business grows and really see the inside of it. We're going to just rip this thing open. We're going to tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly, because we're not sure that this is actually going to succeed. That's the thing about new businesses. That's the exciting part too. If it succeeds, yeah, great, but it might not. So it's going to keep you on the edge. You'll be right there with us, and this is some stuff that you can bring over to your business regardless of what it is. Thank you so much for listening. If you've got questions, comments, check us out online. We're at redpodcast.com. Always looking for feedback. You can get in touch with us there. And if you like the show, please tell a friend. Visit iTunes. Search for Real Entrepreneur Development. You'll find us right there. And if you can leave us a rating, that will help us to come up more often in the iTunes search engines. More people will find us, and we'll be able to share the Real Entrepreneur Development message with more people, creating a bigger community, and then we all win. Thanks for listening. See you next time on the next episode of the Red Podcast.
You've been listening to Red Podcast, Real Entrepreneur Development. Subscribe today using iTunes, Stitcher, or via RSS at redpodcast.com.